Hello, everybody. Some of you who've been around since the 80s might recognize that as the head to Larry Carlton's version of the Lord's Prayer that I'm working back up after I found the sheet music that I had for 30 years in my closet the other day. Anyway, I want to do a quick and dirty thing this week. Those of you who've been watching me a while have heard me talk about Tom Bukovac. He's an old bud. Tom's played on countless demos of mine in the past. Those of you who are subscribed to my channel, most of you probably already subscribed to his. I think it's 501 Chorus Echo 501, something like that. But his series is called Homeschooling. Schooling is spelled with a K. And if you're not already a subscriber to Tom Bukovac, I highly recommend it. I watch Tom. I'm so glad he's got a YouTube channel now because I've always been a huge fan, and now I get to pick his brain on a regular basis as to how he does things, man. And I want to preface this entire video also by saying in no way, nowhere, no how do I put myself in the same universe as Tom Bukovac as a guitar player, much less the same area code. So at any rate, Tom has been talking lately about, he had a revelation one night and we was talking about how to explain how he approaches the neck of the guitar. And he realized at some point that this was kind of like a mutated version of the caged system, which I talk about caged a lot. And my only, truly my only reason for talking about this is just to kind of reinforce what Tom's talking about, in that it doesn't really matter how you look at it. And when I talk about the caged system and when I put up these lessons and these materials having to do with caged, it's just a way to visualize the neck of the guitar. And whereas Tom was looking at it, he had this epiphany, he said, laying in bed, thinking about what he's going to do for his next YouTube video. And he started thinking about the Cowboy Chords, which, of course, I would call them C, A, G, E, and D. But he was just mentioning, really just kind of was talking about E, A, and D. And he went on to talk about how F, of course, is an E, moves up a half step. B is A, moves up a whole step. And and he didn't get much into C and G, which I would argue are definitely Cowboy Chords as well. But that's neither here nor there. His main premise, which was really great, was how he looks at the neck more or less linearly, and how you take the first three strings, and then the second three strings, then the third three strings, and he didn't focus much on the bottom three. But and how you just take like those three notes of an E chord, and you have those versions, or those inversions rather, of an E chord up and down the neck. Go to your A chord, then your D chord, lie up there. And at one point he mentioned that he pointed out how your E chord here, you could play that would be part of a G chord there. So as he was explaining this, he was beginning to realize it was a little like the caged system, I think. Although I really don't think Tom had any conception of the caged system. And to be truthful, I really didn't start calling this stuff the caged system till just a few years ago. Although I've done a little research, and that term caged system has been around probably since I was a boy. No one I ever took lessons from ever mentioned it to me. And so I merely just picked it because it is an established system of a way to look at the guitar neck. And the guitar neck is a very graphic thing. And that's how come you have positions and how they overlap. How come they overlap? And that's how the cage system all fits together. And you have those 5 chords. You have 5 scales and pentatonic and minor, major, you name it, modes that go along those scales. And also, drop my pick. Also, you have those 5 positions they actually intertwine, and I'll get into that a little later, which actually give you 7 positions of if you play 3 notes per string anyway. But I'm not getting into that today. I just wanted to get into talking about how this this epiphany Tom had was like his coming to the realization that, hey, there's how I view the guitar neck. And for me, I came across a similar revelation a long time ago when I was talking about Cowboy Chords. I was playing in a cowboy band out in L.A. At the same time, I was actually a student at the Guitar Institute of Technology. GIT, it was called at the time. I think it's since changed its name to Musicians Institute. And they tried to go with MIT, but I think they had some trouble there. So anyway, I went there. It was a year-long curriculum, one of the best years of my life. It was in Hollywood, and I wound up joining a couple of bands that year I was out there. I lived in a home way out in the Bukovac in the hills with 4 other guys who were all students at the same school. And while I was out there, I was playing in a cowboy band. It was a husband and wife. And it was just this same bar we played at least 2 or 3 months, and it was like a 5 or 6 night a week gig. It was really good money. And here's the epiphany I had, and I'll get into this in another video where I'm going to actually present some backing tracks to practice these with. But my epiphany was he would play all these songs, most of them 3-chord, maybe a minor thrown in here and there, and they were all 3-chord songs. Mostly just old country standards and chestnuts, And this was been the 1980s, early 80s, late 70s, 79, 80. It was actually 1980 I was out there. So there was some stuff they threw in from around that period too, such as, some Emmy Lou stuff, some Rodney Crowell, that kind of thing. But he would play all of those cowboy chords down here at the open position on his acoustic, and I was the lead player and the electric player, so I would try to find a place to play him up here on the neck, and I didn't want to capo everything. I was going to Guitar Institute of Technology. I thought, well, I need to learn how to do this stuff without a capo. So he would be playing his G, C, D thing. And I would be just experimenting. Those gigs were a great experience for me because it gave me a chance to just be in those 3-chord or 4-chord songs all night long. I'd do it there one verse, then I'd pop up here. Let's see. Yeah, like that. I'd just take it all the way up the neck. That's all G, C, G, C, D, G, C, D. Actually, I should have done this one. What we're doing there. Excuse me. I've gone up here. G, C, D, G. Then up to okay, we got G. And that would get you up to the octave of the open position cowboy chords he was playing. So I just kind of made a study that whole gig of taking any song we were playing and experimenting with different places to play it. And so what I was doing without realizing, because I had not heard of the cage system at that point, but I was just kind of internalizing the entire concept is what I was doing. Anyway, that's mainly all I wanted to talk about today, was just bring that up. And once again, remind you guys, if you're not watching Tom Bukovac's homeschooling on YouTube, you're really missing out. It's worth watching Tom's channel just to see him play. So once again, I'd just like to encourage you guys to check it out, and bear that in mind when you're talking about any kind of way to visualize the guitar neck. It doesn't matter what you call it, and like Tom said, you don't really have to know all that stuff to play guitar. But I kind of agree with him when he says, "How good do you want to be?" So there you have it, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll be talking at you again soon. Y'all take care. Y'all take care.